Okay, we are live. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Aya. How you doing?
Doing okay.
Good.
So I don't know if you noticed, but I put down that we're going to talk about other people's expectations and how sometimes they get disappointed in us.
Yeah, that's actually a great topic because I feel like, I actually had a friend. Well, she said once, she goes, I keep my expectations really low regarding other people. And then if something happens that surprises me, that makes me happy. And I kind of like that. What do you think about that, though?
Yeah, exactly. I think what we need to understand is that even if we think we know somebody, we might not know them as well as we think we know them. So why be disappointed because we have some kind of picture in our head of what they're like, and we don't really know that yet.
Yeah, well, when it comes to expectations, I feel like I'm the worst of the worst. I don't have any good intuition in figuring out like what somebody's really like behind the scenes. Well, for instance, my last experience, we thought this guy was so nice because he brought us donuts like every week and he seemed really nice. And I even told him, I feel like sometimes maybe you're so nice. But then it turns out now, oh, well, he never had to do any of those things. But all of that stopped all of a sudden when he met like someone else, and now he just is like whatever. And I don't know, like it just completely changed. But I guess I had an expectation a little bit that because he told me things, but now I have no expectations of anyone because I'm like, well, I don't expect anything from anybody ever again. And I regret that I expected something from that situation.
Well, sometimes the people who come off as being the nicest at the beginning turn out to have ulterior motives or whatever, or anyway, we don't really know what they wanted.
Yeah. And it's good not to have expectations, I think. I think that's the best way to go.
Right. Yeah, because even if the other person is a nice person, we still may totally misread them, and it happens, right?
Yeah, it does. So how were you gonna introduce this topic? How would you preface it?
Well, I would say that none of us, and I think that includes me, you, anybody that we know, nobody knows anybody else inside out, not even our parents or our siblings or anybody really. So we have a picture of how everybody is. And then the moment they step outside the role that we have in our heads, for them, we can get really angry or upset or whatever, but it's not a good idea, to go that way.
Yeah, definitely not. Also too, just I'm not saying other people can't make you happy, but like ultimately for me, what has made me happiest in the long term is just realizing that my happiness is not derived from what anybody else does and actually focusing on things that I like to do, like doing our live streams and things like that, like things that I'm invested in. I don't know, like for you, but that's how I kind of feel like ultimately I have to derive my happiness.
Right. We each have to look inward for our happiness. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't reach out to other people. I think that talking to other people, being with other people, occasionally helping them when they have a problem or accepting help from them when they offer it, that's okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm glad there are other people in the world. I wouldn't want to live in a world in which there are no other people.
Oh, no, that would be boring.
Yeah, but we have to understand that we probably have like a caricature in our head of every person we know. It's not really them. It's just some outward vision of what they should be like. And it's not even a question of they're not as nice as they seem or they're not as whatever as they seem. And it's not even a question of they're trying to hide who they are. In some cases, yes, but in many cases, people just come from a different background. They have different expectations about what life is about, what a person owes another person or doesn't owe another person, what relationships are like. So, you know, we think everything comes as a package deal, you know, as so if you're nice, then you have to belong to the same religion as I do, and you have to do everything the way I do, and so on and so forth. And the moment somebody steps out of that, we get all confused, you know, even if we're not angry, we get confused, but we shouldn't even start out thinking that.
No, and that would probably resolve a lot of disappointment and conflicts and things we have in life if we just could let go of certain expectations we have of other people, because they don't know what we expect of them and we can't do what they expect of us. You know, it would make things a lot easier, I think, if we let go of a lot of those expectations. I'm not saying you can't reach out to people, you can't be friends with them, but maybe we need to stop expecting that people will do certain things a certain way that we think is best.
Right. Yeah, that absolutely. So anyway, I enjoyed our conversation with Kate Gladstone last night. I thought it was very
I thought it was really good. And by the way, the views were really high on that right after the live stream. So I think it resonated with a lot of people. People probably didn't comment because it was kind of a difficult topic. It was about bullying. I think maybe people don't really know what to say because she had so many good points. Like, why did that teacher like encourage kids to bully? It's like, and a lot of people don't know how to respond to it. And honestly, just the one thing that I want to share, just my viewpoint, I don't really think therapy is very helpful in a lot of circumstances because they want to pigeonhole people into certain, like, this is the only problem you can have, this is the only problem you can have. And we have to remember, too, it's a business. It keeps changing over time. It's a very dark business because in the old days, a woman could be institutionalized because she acted like a man, because she slept around for many, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just think like with that history of therapy, it's not really something that I think we should be putting a lot of, and I don't, the therapists are probably going to be mad at me now, but I just believe in trying to find like resolutions to things in life on your own and not looking to therapy.
Yeah, and a lot of what she said about being told by certain therapists to go away because they couldn't handle her, that resonates with me as well. Because here's the thing, if you have a certain kind of personality versus you're hyper logical about certain things, and I think she is, and I am that way.
Yeah, too. For sure. You guys are both very logical people.
Right. So if a therapist were to say, do this, and you would just ask why, how does that work? I'd like to understand. A lot of therapists will say, well, don't question my method, just do as I say. And
that's scary. And it's also too, because I think what it does is it undermines their research. Like, some people get really mad, but the truth about psychology is it's not an exact science. It evolves over time. And a lot of psychologists get really mad at you if you present a problem to them that doesn't coalesce with whatever research they did or however they view the world. They think the only people that have been traumatized by something are people that might be a survivor of this and that. But somebody just being horrifically bullied, like, is out of their radar because they were neurotypical and they can't relate to someone who is logical. And that's sad. Like, they are not open-minded enough. Which to me, questions makes me question a lot of therapy. I'm not saying it can't be helpful to people, but I do think it's a business like anything else. And you have to kind of keep that in mind because they make their money off ensuring that certain people retain their services. And I'm not saying that that can't be helpful to some people. I just don't think in the long term that's a solution for most people. But that's my opinion on it.
Well, I mean, even just the very fact that for a while, Asperger's was the diagnosis to go for. And then all of a sudden they changed the DSM-V and it's not there anymore. You're either autistic or you're not. And what I heard is that a lot of people just got very annoyed with people who had Asperger's diagnosis because they found that personality to be annoying, and they didn't like it when the person said, look, this is the way I am, and I have a diagnosis to go with that. So now you're either functioning well enough that you don't get that Asperger's diagnosis at all, you don't get any kind of ASD diagnosis, or you fall within the autism spectrum But you see what they're doing is they're saying, if you happen to be a person who has all of these issues but is perfectly functional, we don't want to help you.
Yeah, that's kind of, and my feeling is I don't feel like they can help anybody that much anyway. That's just my take. I'm going to be really honest with you. Okay, yes, maybe there's some circumstances, but look at Woody Allen. He's been going to therapy forever and he's still a nervous wreck. Has it improved his life in any? I don't know. I'm very skeptical of the whole thing.
I don't know. I think he probably got some plots for his movies out of that. But
well, he got creative muses for sure. It's entertaining. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't know. I just am skeptical of the whole thing. That's my take.
Right. So some other things that I thought of after the interview with Kate Gladstone that relate to that, but they're from my family. I thought I could share. So this whole business about the Jewish identity and whether that has anything to do with religion, of course, that pops up in a lot of places. And so you know that my family were Zionists, and my father was brought up not Jewish at all. But
that's what you said.
Yeah, with Hebrew as his language. And so they went to Palestine, and he continued to not think of himself as Jewish and continued to speak Hebrew. So those things do not go together. You know, Kate was saying, well, she got the best grades in Hebrew, but she wasn't Jewish enough for those people in that school, so they wouldn't let her, you know, they wouldn't give her the accolades that she deserved. But here's some stuff about something that about the attempt of secular Jews to hold on to that identity. It's something that happened not in my close family, but in my family line. So I think it was an uncle of my grandmother. That's how distant that is. You know, that's not really close, but an uncle of my grandmother and his wife and his daughter and his son were also fleeing Poland, I believe, at about that time. Now, I could have some of the facts a little bit wrong. Well, my great aunt, who is my grandmother's sister, lived in London. They stopped in London, and they had like a teenage daughter. And they knew that they were going to Palestine, and they thought of Palestine as being Asia and being not very sophisticated place and maybe a dangerous place, they thought. So they left their teenage daughter under my great aunt's care in London, and they proceeded with their little boy, who was younger, to Palestine because they thought it would be safer for a girl to stay in a civilized nation. Okay. All right. And it was mostly the wife of my grandmother's uncle who had that attitude. Okay. So, you know, lo and behold, there was the Blitz. Okay. So here's this teenage girl in London, and, you know, they're being bombed, and the coolest guys are, of course, the RAF pilots.
Oh boy, I see what's happening.
So she fell in love with an RAF pilot. I think she might have been only 15 when she fell in love with him.
Yeah, that was pretty typical for that time, actually. There's a lot of literature about it, by the way.
Yeah, so it wasn't a bad thing. And you have to understand, my great aunt, who was, I guess, her guardian at that time because they left her in her care, she was a very young woman. You know, she had a small child. She was married and had a small child. She wasn't like, you know, she wasn't going to be some kind of a dueña who prevented this girl from meeting up with this guy. You understand?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah.
So eventually, I guess my great aunt, when she saw that there was no stopping it, she eventually allowed her to marry the guy because they were in love.
Yeah.
And they proceeded to get married. I don't know, maybe she was maybe 17 at the time when they married. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't, but anyway, and they proceeded to have 2 children. There's, as far as I still know, they're still happily married and everything's fine.
Oh,
You know.
See, yeah, it worked out then. That's good for them, you know.
Okay, but this is I'm about to tell you the story about what the mother of that girl did. She totally freaked out.
Oh.
And it was because her daughter had married a non-Jew. Now, none of these people were religious, not even a small smidgen of religion, okay? It was just an identity thing.
It was just an identity, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So she said, this is not going to happen with my son, because she had a small boy with her. So, you know, most people in Israel are not religious, but there is, you know, a minority that are. She decided she was going to send her son to a school that was very Jewish, very traditional, Jewish, religious, Orthodox, blah. Okay. Now, fortunately for them, their son was very neurotypical. So he wasn't freaked out by the, you know, it didn't happen. He didn't have this sense of being abused. Okay. That a child would, if a child expects everybody to be consistent, which, you know, somebody with Asperger's does expect logic and consistency. Well, this guy had perfectly good social skills, but he was totally assimilated into that religious background. He wasn't mean to his parents. He, you know, one of the things he was taught is honor your father and mother. So he wasn't like, he didn't take it out on his parents or anything, but he refused to eat with them because they weren't kosher.
Wow. But he was becoming very strict, like just from that experience.
Yeah, so they basically, for a while there, lost both their children because they were just so nuts about the identity thing. But it really wasn't my grandmother's uncle who had that problem. It was his wife, you know. And
yeah,
after
that can happen. I mean, that does happen. I think there's this identity thing, though, in other cultures, like just beyond Judaism. I know, well, because I'm part Syrian, I think for my grandpa, like, he was pretending not to be Syrian. He even told me when he was in his 30s, like, he would tell people he was Greek. And I said, really? Why? And he said, because he thought people would like him better. Like, he tried to assimilate and tried to deny some of his, I don't know who he was. And then later in life, he was singing songs in Arabic, and he said, I feel like I lost my identity. I said, really? That's interesting. He goes, because I wasn't who I was. So I think, like, when people, okay, I mean, I don't know how to say it because I'm not of, like, Jewish background, but maybe they feel like they're going to lose something unless they retain part of it through some sort of, like, school with religion or something. I don't know. Like, maybe it's wanting to.
It's the minority politics that my father in his book. I can go over here so you can see the book and me. You know, when you are a minority someplace, the only way you can retain your identity is by refusing to eat with other people, be with other people. Otherwise, you're going to get assimilated.
Really fast.
Yeah, really fast. So, and, you know, it's not pretty. That the minority politics isn't pretty, but that's the reason it happens. Once you become the majority, you have to stop acting like that, though. And some of the people who came from the diaspora didn't know when to stop it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, they just wanted to retain. So I can kind of get it, though. Like, they want to retain this part of their culture that makes them unique because they don't want to be like everybody else because it makes them feel special, right? You know, and they feel like,
yeah, well, yeah. And I think a lot of people misunderstand me because they either think I'm denying my roots, which I'm definitely not.
You're definitely not. Where do people get that from? I've never thought that at all. That's so weird. Like, why do people think that?
Yeah, but because a lot of them are taught that the people who assimilate are the people who deny their roots or whatever. I'm not denying my roots. I am actually reaching way down to my roots beyond and before the diaspora. And
I think you definitely are. You talk about, like, the Phoenicians and Hannibal. Like, I think you go farther back than a lot of these people even know. Like, and you know the history and you study language, I don't think you deny your roots at all, you know?
Right. But some people think that. And then other people, they're like, why are you speaking Hebrew to your daughter? You're living in the United States. Why are you doing that?
Why do they care? You can speak whatever language you want with your daughter. That's on your own time. Like you've made clear before, it's not like you guys are doing it in a public setting where you're telling other people they have to that's silly, really. I mean,
yeah. So I think there's just a lot. And I think it's not just in that area, but almost anything about us, about me, about you, about any person that is unusual, people will misinterpret,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, honestly, like I've never fit in with most people, but what am I going to do about it? Am I going to try and be something I'm not? I don't know. I just think we're each different. We're not all the same. Why do we all have to be the same? But that can bother people in a social setting where everybody knows how to kind of do the thing that everybody else is doing. And if you're not really doing that, you do stand out, I suppose.
Yeah. And the question is how not to be annoying when you're different. So, I go to other people's houses, and around here, everybody, holds hands and says a prayer before dinner. So I hold hands and let them say their prayer before dinner. It doesn't bother me.
That's fine. Like, I don't think that's a problem. You're just participating in something that they like to do. I'm kind of familiar with that too. Like, I went to church a little bit, but not as much as other people. And I went into people's houses where they prayed and they were very religious, and it never bothered me. But some people get really bothered by that. But it seems like it's the really maybe hardcore atheists, especially on hub pages back in the day and maybe even now. They seem really upset that anybody could have some religious faith, but I don't know how that takes away from whatever they believe. Like if they believe what they believe, how does somebody believing in God hurt them,
Right, exactly. But then again, the thing that happened to the Branch Davidians, and they were, if you want to talk about what they belonged to, they were an offshoot of Seventh-day Adventists, if you've heard of those.
Yeah, I have heard that, yes.
So what Seventh-day Adventists do is they use the Hebrew calendar for their Christian observance.
Yeah, they do I'm very familiar with that. Loma Linda, actually, everything's shut down on Saturday. Like basically the whole town shuts down, the library, the city hall on Saturday, because that's what they do. Like this city actually instituted their days to be closed Saturday because the town was founded by the Seventh-day Adventists. So I'm very familiar with that, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so maybe they came from there. I don't know. Anyway, so the Branch Davidians were a particular offshoot in Texas, in the Waco area.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were under siege, they were celebrating Easter, but not the Easter that most people celebrate, according to the Roman calendar that we have, but the other calendar.
The Georgian calendar, I believe. Or is
the lunar calendar. They went
the lunar, okay.
And people were making fun of them on television, saying, oh, they lied. They said they would do this on Easter, and, did not take into account that their Easter was different.
Yeah, so their Easter might have been the same Easter like the Greek Orthodox and like the Russian Orthodox. Like I would have to look into it, but did they use that?
It was the same time as Passover because,
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, because when I think about it, yeah. If you look back, that's how they used to do it before they changed the calendar. I'd have to reread, but I think I see what they're doing. And why does anybody care when they celebrate Easter anyway? They could celebrate it in July, like if that's what they want to do.
Right. The thing is, what I'm getting at is they were made fun of on television while they were under siege because they were slightly different. And I'm saying just slightly different from all the other Christians. They were just a Christian sect.
Yeah. And I never did understand like why they had to be surrounded like that and like I don't understand why that had to happen. Like as a kid, I thought that was really confusing. I'm like, why is this happening? Why are they doing this? Like,
well, I was talking to someone recently, a young person, and when they realized that this was done by the government, the first thing they said was, but why? They must have had some reason to do this, like I was holding out on the reason. Well, I don't know why they did it, but they did do it. And what's happening right now is that action by the government was legitimized by the fact that it was never, it was condoned. It was never overturned. So now, if you tell this story to a very young person who hears it for the first time, they'll say, you're not telling me everything. They must have done something terrible to deserve.
Not necessarily. They may have just, I mean, we have to keep in mind, there were a lot of things that the government did in the past to people that weren't good. Like, oh, what they did to the Native Americans, that wasn't always good. They did sexual experiments on certain groups of people, giving them syphilis to see how it would impact. I mean, we have to be honest. These were government run, sponsored. There were things, and that's not conspiracy theory. That's actual history.
Yeah. So it just really saddens me that this is spiraling completely out of control. And if I say that a no-knock warrant is an invitation for the government to just go and shoot people in their homes, that it's a license to kill. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether people are not looking into it because they think there must have been a reason for doing that.
I don't think there was necessarily a reason. I think they just decided that they didn't like this group and they wanted them to go. That's kind of the gist I get. But didn't Janet Reno get a lot of heat and it was kind of swept under the carpet for the way she handled it?
She did not get a lot of heat. I mean,
I thought some people criticized her, though, for how she...
Yeah, they criticized her, but then she died and everybody continued to honor her memory.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like the same thing with John McCain, by the way. Like, people who live in Syria were like, well, he kind of helped some groups come in that were like, that became part of ISIS, like saying that they were like pro-democracy groups. And they did some really bad things. And she was like, everybody's honoring John McCain, but you have to kind of know he was a war hawk and there were things he did that were just very unsavory, but you weren't supposed to say that about John McCain, I guess. Like,
well, at least not on the day he died, but I guess we can say it now.
I want to say it on the day he died, but some people were just very upset about it because, like, if you had relatives that were at a church or something and they ended up being targeted by ISIS, you might be upset too,
Yeah. No, listen, somebody was sharing that the ATF on their website on the February 28th were saying something about the brave men who stormed the compound and died on February the 28th. Well, what about the people that they killed? They had no right to storm that compound. They had no right to go in there.
No, and it should never have happened.
But they're mourned as heroes on the ATF website. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's kind of sick, but it's that group dynamic thing, like where people are going to support their own. They're going to try to make it seem like what they did was right. They're not going to ever apologize. Like, I highly doubt the ATF's ever going to say, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and those people were killed needlessly. They're never going to admit that.
See, what I was hoping would happen was not simply that they would acknowledge it, but that they would be disbanded. I don't think we need them.
Well, why is that? Like, why do we need all these agencies? Did the Constitution want all this? Like, was that the intent of the original founders of the Constitution?
I don't believe so. I mean, the very fact that people now, when they talk about this day in history, and these are, neutral people. They're not pro ATF. They're not pro Chorus. They're just trying to say, this is what happened on this day. They will say, oh, there was a warrant because they were stockpiling weapons. Well, stockpiling weapons is not a crime. It can't be a crime because we have the Second Amendment. It doesn't say you're allowed to have a certain number of weapons and then stop.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, you're right. But I guess now that we have more of these agencies, like they're going to continue to have more power over time. I'm not saying what happened was right, but they're going to justify themselves no matter what because they deem themselves correct. But it takes people like you to shed light on this, that it's not correct.
Well, I think there aren't enough people, and those of us who are out here are totally without a voice, because even when I had close to 40 views, it was showing 8 views, and I don't know, I'm kind of paranoid. I'm thinking, why did that happen? Why are they hiding my views?
You know, my views are really low right now. Like I told you, I did a 2-hour live stream where I was trying to open a coconut. I know that you watched a little bit of it.
I did.
2 other people did. It got a comment. It got 3 likes. But 2 weeks later, it still only has 29 views. And that was a 2-hour live stream. So I feel like, well, in my channel, for my case, I think my views are being downgraded. And I certainly think I have more than 4,000 hours of watch time on both my channels. I'm pretty sure I do, but they keep saying no. And it keeps going down like all the time to where I've just given up. Like, I don't know what I can ever do for my channel. So I feel like they just decided that my channel is never going to be monetized again. That's pretty much how I feel at this point. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't know what to say. I mean, do you really think there's a person who goes and looks at our channels and decides whether we're going to get monetized?
I don't know. Maybe, but I feel like, because I've been told on several different occasions just from various people when I was commenting on the demonetization, some people just said some channels will be monetized. I just feel like there's something about my content that I think I do get enough views. I know that my subscribers have gone way up over the last year, but there's just, it seems to be something that I don't foresee the monetization is going to come back from my channel. I'm very skeptical at this point. I could be wrong. Maybe it will, but maybe it's because I'm not putting in the effort, I guess. But then there's some people, they have like 3 videos and they have thousands of subscribers and hundreds of hours of views. So it doesn't encourage me to make more videos sometimes. I guess it's just me feeling discouraged. That's all.
Well, I understand you have every right to be discouraged, but please just keep at it, because you never know. Something could go viral, you know, something you do, maybe something about how to make jewelry or something about how to cook, or one of your skills, you know, your art lessons.
Yeah, I don't really invest in making those kind of videos enough anymore, I guess. But I feel like I had a lot of old content. And there's a couple of videos that have like 144,000 views, by the way. I feel like that should be enough. Like, I don't understand. How can I have a video that has 144,000 views from 2014, but I'm still not in this, like, having 1,000 subscribers? Like, it just, I don't know.
Well, on this channel, you know, you're very close to having 1,000 subscribers on your main channel. On this channel, it keeps going to 35, 36, 35, 36, 37, 36. You know, I don't know what's going on with that, but it doesn't look like I'll have 100 anytime soon.
Unless something changes, like you said. I think you just have to keep working at it and see what would be. You just have to see what happens, I guess. Right. Maybe it ties into expectations. Maybe I have too many expectations for my channel.
Well, I don't know. I think it has to do with what people's expectations of us are. I feel as if I let some people down, you know, because I'm not the person they thought I was.
But who is the person that's another thing too I don't get about the internet. They want you to be so niche that you can only tweet about one topic, and then you tweet about something that they don't like and they have to unfollow you right away because they're that myopic. Like, oh no, you mentioned, I don't know, food, and you weren't talking about politics, or the election is over and I just have to unfollow everybody now. Like, yeah, I don't get it. Like, or you're not a Democrat anymore, so I have to unfollow you because you no longer post liberal stuff. That's so ridiculous. By the way, liberals are the worst with this. They will unfollow somebody just for not being liberal. That's ridiculous. But they're very open-minded. Oh, sure, sure. Actually, they're not liberal anymore.
Yeah, they call
No,
themselves liberal, but that's not what they
and
are.
it's not liberal. I don't understand. Like, you've unfollowed someone because they tweeted something about an issue you didn't like. Whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just think there are expectations. For instance, in my case, I like chimpanzees, but that doesn't mean that I support the Jane Goodall Institute. So there's just a lot of stuff, or or somebody will share with me something about a sanctuary, and I know that a little girl chimpanzee was sent to that sanctuary and she died there, and I don't know what to say to the person.
You know, a good story about sanctuaries. This kind of ties in. There are people that are vegan, but some of them, they're not going to give money to certain sanctuaries anymore because this one lady, like, she liked, I don't know, she liked the sanctuary, but they started like saying things like, well, you can get protein from broccoli only. And she was like, that's ridiculous. Like, and even as a vegan, we know you need to eat protein, but there's these people, they can't have any fat. They can't have any protein.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not even about protein,
Yeah.
we don't necessarily have to eat protein, but we do need to eat fat because there are essential fats that we can't get any other way.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so sick of these fat phobic people like, oh my God, you ate an avocado. I ate 3 avocados today. Some people would go off the wall if they knew that I ate that many avocados. Like, it would just, but if you say that on the internet, there's people, they will go crazy.
Bo had avocado today.
They're really good. I'm going to eat lots of avocados. I don't know. That's why I didn't want to be part of that avocado study. Like, my sister's like, you should join the avocado study. I said, why? She goes, because they want you to only eat half an avocado a day. And I said, but what's the reason? Because they want to see how much visceral fat you could have on your stomach. You're either in the non-avocado group or the avocado group. And I said, well, I want to eat as many avocados as I want. And she goes, no. But if you're in the study, you can only eat half an avocado. And I said, well, I'm not going to do it.
What are you going to do with the other half? That's the thing.
That's the thing I don't get. Like, and why is it that the study deems that it's only half an avocado? Like, you can't eat the whole avocado. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't eat avocados that much anymore because I have all these food issues. Yeah. But my daughter loves avocados, so I buy avocados when she is here for her. Mm-hmm. And if we have any left over, Bo gets to eat them because we don't want to waste, right?
Yeah, so exactly. Well, the only reason I'm eating a lot of avocados right now is they're usually pretty pricey, but right now the ones from Mexico are on sale. And when, by the way, you're not supposed to buy avocados from Mexico. Like, people keep giving you all these things like, you can't buy this, you can't buy that. I don't care. I'm going to buy the avocado from Mexico because they're on sale.
Right. Sure. Of course. Of course. And,
well, they told us like a few years ago you weren't supposed to because supposedly somehow the person who owned the avocado farm was like connected to the cartel. And I'm like, how do I even know that's true? So I'm not supposed to buy something at the store because of something that...
Yeah, I have some friends in Slovenia, and one of them was asking, what is the most ethical way to buy avocados? And that sounded like such a ridiculous question,
They're just avocados, but there's some people, they truly believe if you buy an avocado, you're somehow supporting this group of people, but it's something that's sold at the supermarket. It's an avocado. And honestly, that sounds like an internal problem that has nothing to do with avocados. I don't know. But there's also these other weird rules, like if you work for a certain store that has a union, you're not supposed to shop at Walmart because they don't have a union. And this is a real rule, by the way. I'm not kidding. Like, some people that work at this one supermarket, I'm not going to name the supermarket, but they have a union. So you're supposed to never shop at Walmart because they don't have a union.
But are you telling me that the store with the union goes after these people if they happen to shop at Walmart?
They'll like criticize you. Like, they will publicly like shame you if like another employee sees you. Do you know what that sounds like?
What would they be doing at Walmart unless they were shopping there themselves?
They're there too, but like, it's a leverage thing. It's weird.
It is.
It's real though. This is real. Like, there is a store. I'm not going to name the store because I don't want anybody mad at me. But yeah, like, other employees were shopping there. they saw the other person shopping there, so they would say something to other people working at the store with the union, saying so and so was shopping at Walmart and they don't have a union. But that's about expectations too. Why does it matter where you shop? Like, big deal.
I mean, that's the free market. You shop where you find what you want at the price you want it at. That's it.
And by the way, this one store, I don't even like them anymore because their produce is horrible half the time and their prices are going up. So yeah, I am going to shop at Walmart. Thank you very much. Or I'm going to shop at Food for Less because they have better prices. Sorry.
Yeah.
Or if I want to spend more money, I'm going to go to Sprouts where they have good produce.
Yeah. Well, I have not that many choices, but I exercise every choice I have.
Yeah, I do too. But, oh yeah, there was another one. That same store said that you weren't supposed to shop at like Cardina's. They had so many rules. I don't even care because I don't work at that store, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm going off on a tangent, but was there anything else that you wanted to add about expectations?
Oh, I don't know. I was going to ask you, I mean, do you ever feel as if there are some expectations of you, like you like to wear dresses and you like to have long hair, do people make assumptions about you based on your appearance or?
Yeah, I think people think like, they think that I'm not cool sometimes. Like I get a lot of women who do like that I have long hair and that I like to wear dresses, but I've had people kind of imply like I'm a princess or something, which I don't get, like, because of the way I like to dress. But here's the thing, I kind of just like retro fashion. I like kind of like old school fashion. Like I like longer hair, more classical. And it's not, the more that I get into having long hair, I'm kind of like letting all this go because as my hair gets longer, a lot of people are complimenting me on it. So it just kind of went to show me that all these people that had like this weird expectation that I should always wear pants like when I was younger, that it doesn't really matter anymore. Because when I was younger, yes, even some people in my own family, they were like, well, you should wear jeans because this other girl wears jeans and you're like, you have a better figure than her and you could like look really good in the jeans. But I'm like, but that's not what I wanted to wear. So why can't I just wear the dress? Like, why does it bother you? Or
Right.
You're wearing a dress and it's 40 degrees outside and you're walking. But I wasn't cold. And then I talked to people who grew up in Germany and they used to walk outside in short sleeves. So if I wasn't cold and I was wearing that, why does it bother you? It's not like I got a cold or anything. When I was younger, there were more weird expectations, but I feel like as time has gone by, there still might be, but I'm just going to wear what I want to wear. Like I like to wear dresses. Some people, they don't like that, but I don't know why, because they don't have to wear what I'm wearing, you know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't have hair as long as yours, but I like to have my hair as long as it will grow. And
I think it's nice. Yeah. And one of the commenters said, oh, that's cool that you have long hair. I think, well, you know what? My opinion is the women who think that after a certain age that you're supposed to have short hair, I think that's a weird expectation. I don't know who made up that rule that after a certain age, everybody's supposed to have short hair, because a lot of women don't, by the way. I met a woman the other day. She was in her 60s and she had like Crystal Gale length hair still. And you can do what you want to do, you know?
Right, exactly. That's exactly the thing. And what I'm finding as I get older is I'm less likely to take the hint. You know, people used to give me a hint. You know, they wouldn't say, I don't do this, but they would just say,
oh, the hint. I hate the hints. So anyway, yeah, they'd give you a hint and then.
Right. But I know who I am. I know what I want. I may not be on this earth for very much longer, and I'm going to do whatever I want with, you know.
I hope you live a lot longer. I want you to live a long time. I think you will, but you should do what you want anyway.
Right. I think we all should. And as we get older, I mean, I don't think we should be mean to other people. I'm trying very hard to, not to go there. You know, even if I'm upset about something somebody says, I want to respond in a way that opens them up to new ideas and not shut their mind to anything just because I was too abrupt. So I'm working on that. But on the other hand, I don't want to hide who I am anymore. And I'm more likely to reveal things that go against what people's expectations were about me.
And that's fine. Yeah, I kind of think like, well, how do I, that was another thing too. Oh, here's another expectation thing. I am sick of people telling me because I'm 40 years old that I shouldn't be walking all over the place. Like, why do you care? Like, I've literally had people tell me, well, maybe you shouldn't walk so much because like you're 40, but I know people that are in their 40s that are very active. Why would I stop walking around because I'm 40? Well, I don't understand. Or that you're 40 years old, you should be doing this now. You should be acting this way. You should be this way. And I'm like, I'm not that so much that I think I'm having a midlife crisis, because I don't think it's that. I just don't really care what anybody thinks about me because I'm a certain age on the calendar. I'm going to do what I want to do. And a lot of people do send me hints too. But at this point, like, you know, just if you want to tell me something, be direct, because I'm sorry, I don't always pick up on the hint. That's another problem. I don't always pick up on the hint.
I don't either. I remember one time I had my hair up in a bun, and some, I guess it was one of my interns, they said to me, you know, Aya, if you have a mirror in your bathroom and another mirror, you could see the back of your head. And I'm like, what is she trying to tell me?
Yeah, like, I don't get that. Like, if you want to tell me something, just tell me directly. But that doesn't mean I'm going to change what I'm doing. Like, if it's something that might be impacting someone else, yeah, I don't want to do something that's going to upset someone else. However, if it's something just about the way I dress, or the fact that I like to walk everywhere, or anything else, like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm not going to start living my life a certain way just because of my age. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Right. I absolutely agree. But here's the other thing. You know, when we're younger and we're applying for jobs, there might be some things that we don't want a potential employer to know about us, because we might have political opinions that they would disagree with or whatever. But
Yeah.
As we get older, and there is less and less likelihood that we're going to be applying for those jobs, those types of jobs.
Yeah.
There's even less reason not to speak our mind. And after all, we only have so much time on earth to be who we are. So why not be genuine?
Well, you can have whatever opinions you want. And here's another thing too, as long as you're just not in a workplace, like, spreading that opinion, I think it's okay. If you're on your own time, you're not hurting anybody, like, you know, like, but I guess for security clearance jobs, is that kind of what we're talking about? Like people who work for the government or something?
Well, I mean, you know, the government is peripherally in everything. So if I were to apply for a job, obviously I wouldn't be applying to the CIA or something like that.
Yeah, but
I would be applying though for an academic position, and in a lot of those positions, they want to know whether you will be able to bring in grants from the government.
Oh yeah, the federally funded things like that. Yeah, that I can see. Like if you are applying for an academic position, but maybe it's good that you aren't, because this gives you more freedom to do what you want to with Project Bow. And just think about it this way: if you had pursued that career, would you have been able to do all the things that you've done? You know,
I would not have been. But here's the thing: I don't, you know, what you lose is the platform to speak and to be considered an expert. So all sorts of people come to my other channel. They enjoy watching Bo groom me, and then they leave comments about how I should forget about being a primatologist and just be, you know, just enjoy letting him groom you.
Well, but then again, okay, so these people, they're deemed experts in their field, but let's go back. Like, I'm not saying that you can't be an expert if you're in academia, but just a lot of it is like only one view. Like you can only have one viewpoint. So after a while, how is that expertise when everybody kind of has just variations of the same view? Like,
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
asking.
exactly it. The thing is, I remember my father asked me something, a linguistic question. It was actually about doubling of consonants in English. So I told him the rule. At the time, I was a lawyer. I wasn't a linguist. I told him the rule, you know, about what kind of syllables you have and what kind of situation you would end up having those consonants doubled. And he said, oh, that's kind of a lot like the Hebrew rule about doubling consonants. And so he was in correspondence with a linguist in Israel, and he wrote that to his friend. He explained what I explained. He said, my daughter said this, and actually this is very similar to that. And then the guy wrote back to him, the linguist from Israel, and he said, never, ever quote your daughter. She is not a linguist. So that had me thinking, well, I better go get a PhD in linguistics so that what I have to say counts. But I bet you that after I did get the PhD in linguistics, I would still not be considered a linguist by that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, some people just decide that other people can't be right about anything, even if they kind of know deep down they are right. And it kind of goes back to that thing of like envy. Because that person
it's this idea that you can be an expert, but you have to agree with all the other experts. If you get your PhD and you've done all the stuff that is supposed to make you an expert, and you say something which is different, that diverges from what all the other experts are saying, then you're not really an expert.
You know, I have a lot to say about that in the field of history. This is why I'm kind of glad I didn't pursue a PhD in history, because a lot of the old, well-written books on history just were so informative. They gave you lots of content about things that happened in the past. And then I'd be taking some courses, and they were starting to, like, I have nothing against anthropology, but they started talking about, like, the core and the periphery and all these different things. Or the history text would have, like, no sense to it. And literally, we told our professor this book about the Mexican Revolution was just, it was gibberish. It didn't make any sense. We sat here, we read it. We don't know what we read, because, and then he kind of came back to us. He goes, well, she's an expert in her field and she's just trying to prove a point. And we didn't know what she was trying to say. It was indecipherable. It was that bad, but she was considered an expert. And right. I don't know what I read, but it wasn't very informative at all.
Yeah, no. I know that right now, even in biology, they are teaching things in the university that don't make sense and are not true, but they're in these, and you know, the textbooks are so big. They're so big and they're so heavy and they're so colorful.
They're very colorful.
Yeah, so they spent so much money on the physical appearance of the book, but then the content is garbage.
It could, yeah, I think we've lost some academic rigor in certain aspects of different programs, but you're not allowed to say that right now. And I feel like in history, it's overly politicized, because I can imagine right now, if you're a history student, you're probably talking about Donald Trump all the time. Just the impression I get. And that's not history. That's just the current president.
Right. Yeah. No, I told Pam Keyes, you know, she's a history expert who writes for me on Historia Obscura. And she should go get a PhD in history and teach those people a thing or two, which she knows already.
Yeah, she knows quite a bit about it. Yeah. But I don't know, like the whole PhD in history thing, you had to teach. You didn't make a lot of money doing it. I mean, it's great if you want to, but then they were all infighting with each other over who gets this grant, who gets to go here. And I was just like, it seems like you invest a lot of your life in it. And I didn't think that would make me happy. And I felt like I could read and learn about history on my own. But I could think that's great. You know, if you do want to get a PhD in history, more power to you. I just am glad I didn't pursue that route right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, my point is, there are expectations about what you're supposed to know and what you're not supposed to know, also based on your prestige and the whether or not you are part of the academic environment. So,
yeah. There was a scandal in the history department too, back in the late 90s, where I don't know how much of it was true, but there was this one professor, I guess they were saying he did solicit women. Although other students that had him said they never saw that from him. He drove into a tree and he ended up killing himself because he was going to be accused of a lot of really bad things by these other, and some of the people that were the professors kind of behind it, I didn't think were the best professors, because they would just always talk about and I have nothing against feminism if that's what you want to think, but they would just always talk about feminism and how they were being discriminated against. And I kind of began to wonder, like, the legitimacy of some of that scandal. Like, I felt like they just wanted to become higher in that department, so they kind of generated some of that scandal. There may have been some wrongdoing, but they say that one professor might not have done all the things that they accused him of. It was a very strange situation too. So that kind of tinged some of how I felt at the time about, well, I don't know. I'm not saying that would be the experience, but I didn't really like that dynamic.
Oh yeah, that sounds awful. And yeah, there are scandals pretty much in every department. And then the question is, if you are ever involved in any of those things, when is it okay to start talking about it? You know, I mean, just so people know, you know, when is it okay to reveal that something untoward happened?
Yeah, I mean, bad things do happen, but it just seemed like there was just so much infighting in that department. And there were two professors I really liked. And he goes, well, me and this other professor, we're staying out of it. And I really like them. And I thought they're great. And the way that they taught history was very intelligible. And they were kind of old school, where you would read a lot of content and firsthand documents. And I really love the way that they taught history, but that's just not how most of the history was being taught by the other professors. So that didn't make me want to pursue a PhD where people who wrote certain theories would get ahead. I don't know. That was just the impression I got at the time.
Well, no, I totally believe you. The humanities are not a good place to be because there's not enough rigor. All this political stuff gets thrown into it.
Yeah. Well, that's just some of my perspective on it. Maybe other people have a different take on it.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, even Nassim Taleb, when he's talking about economists, he has complaints about the situation, and economists are presumably a little bit above historians in the rigor area.
Oh, definitely, yeah, for sure.
But nevertheless, a lot of them do not really understand the math that is behind their economics.
Yeah, but they feel that their theory is correct and you can't deviate from, because I know there's a certain school of economic theory that gets promoted over other ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of the same thing with history. Right now you're only supposed to talk about like a certain viewpoint in history. Like, I don't think there's a lot of libertarian historians, for instance. There might be, but I don't think those are going to be ones that you find at a university. I think it's going to be a very left-leaning, like you're only supposed to view history this way. Not that I want it to be right-leaning, but I don't think that we're objective in history the way that they claim to be. I actually came to see it as sort of the opposite.
Well, I mean, I have points that I want to make in every area, and history is one of them. But I mean, I don't want to go and become an historian just to make those points.
No, definitely not. I still really love history, though. I love learning about the past and how people thought. But I feel like I can learn that so much better with an intelligible book that explains what was happening, looking at the firsthand documents, not creating this weird theory that confuses everybody because it's gibberish. I just want to be honest. Some history books are gibberish and they get published and promoted. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So to put in a plug for one of my books, Theodosia and the Pirates, The War Against Spain, it has primary documents in it. So
it does. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so it's a nice way to learn a little bit of history, and those things that are not historical in it, you know, you can go to the back of the book and I'll tell you what I made up and what was real.
And I like how you explained everything. And also, too, I learned a little bit more about Aaron Burr, because I think in history classes we don't really talk about him, because it seems like they still have some sort of vendetta against him because of Alexander Hamilton.
It's not even because of Alexander Hamilton. It's because of Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, it's because of Thomas Jefferson. Okay, it started with him. Yeah, you're right, because he was his vice president.
Because by the time Alexander Hamilton was dead, there was nobody standing up for Alexander Hamilton. What happened was that Thomas Jefferson used Hamilton's death to go, you know, to make things really hard for Aaron Burr, even though, you know, Hamilton and Jefferson were not friends at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just a political ploy, basically.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting. Well, people will have to read the book to find out more, I guess, you know?
Yeah, well, that's my other Theodosia and the Pirates, the first one, the battle against Britain, which I have pretty much given up on selling to anyone because it has so many bad reviews.
But the people that reviewed it, they seem very fixated on a particular view of Theodosia. And that's an expectations thing again, Aya. Like, they seem really upset that she might be slightly different, or there was some theory about her. But by the way, there's lots of historical fiction out there. I don't know why they were so upset about one theory about Theodosia. That's just very...
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is right now, I'm thinking if I ever have this read on Audible, I'll start with this book and we'll forget about the first one. And then anybody who wonders what happened before this,
they can go back and read it. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But the second one is really good, though, as you know, it has a lot of, the storyline's very good, so maybe that's a good way to go.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I mean, there are expectations of us, of our writing, of our appearance, of what we're supposed to think, because we look a certain way or we come from a certain place. And whenever we go counter to that expectation, you know, people feel like they got betrayed.
Yeah, they do. So maybe the remedy to that is we stop having expectations of people and things, and we see what happens in life. And if we don't expect anything, maybe things will surprise us in ways that we did not foresee.
Right. Okay, so that's a good note to end on. And by the way, we have some people lined up for our main live streams. Doug Allen Ashby will be our guest very soon, and Kate Gladstone will come again later on in the month.
Yeah, I'm very interested too with continuing talking with Kate. People, I think, really resonated with what she had to say. So I'm kind of excited to see how the views were very high on that live stream. There may not have been as many comments, but the views were really good right after the live stream for sure.
And the next time she talks, she'll be talking about her spirit of entrepreneurship, her many businesses and her inventions and her creativity.
That's exciting for sure. So anyway, that sounds like a good thing to look forward to. But it was nice talking with you, and I have no expectations for the rest of the day. Have a nice day, Aya.
Okay, have a nice day, Julia.